Balance versus falls prevention. Balance and falls prevention are not actually the same thing. A lot of times we think about doing a balance class and we think it's the same thing as working on falls prevention, but that's actually not the case. Balance is your ability to keep your center of gravity, which for most people is around their belly button, over their base of support. The wider your base of support, the easier it is to balance. The more narrow we make our base of support, the more difficult it can be to balance. Now, balancing, things like being able to stand on one foot or walking a line toe to heel, these are really important for some things. If you are a gymnast, balance is so important to be able to do all those moves on a beam or do all these crazy things. Balance is very important. If you are a snowboarder, balance is very, very important. But when it comes to preventing falls, balance is a very small part of the picture. But where the confusion comes in is one of the ways that we look at risk of falls is by measuring balance, okay? So stay with me on this one. When we do a balance assessment, when we tell an older adult, I want you to stand on one foot with no hands touching anything, and I want to see if you can hold that for 30 seconds. And then we say, I want to see if you can do it with your eyes closed. Okay? And then I want to see if you can do it looking side to side. That will assess their balance to see if they have any issues just with their balance, okay? And there is a relationship between how good their balance is and their likelihood of falling. So someone who does have poor balance is more likely to fall. But practicing something like standing on one leg or walking a line toe to heel is not necessarily going to prevent falls. So this is where I see some groups go wrong, is they have a balance class, and that class is filled with things like narrow stance, tandem stance, single leg stance, walking a line forwards, walking a line backwards, and all of these balance challenges. And they're measuring their group's balance. They measure it when they come in, and maybe they measure it again 12 weeks from now, and they're like, wow, your balance has improved. We are decreasing your risk of falls. Yay. And that's great that it seems like their risk of falls has decreased, but really what we're missing is they've been practicing the test for 12 weeks now, okay? I want to give you an analogy to why this is important. Let's say I'm going to test your knowledge in chemistry, okay? I'm going to test your knowledge in chemistry. I'm going to give you this test and the answers. And for 12 weeks, I want you to study this test and the answers. And in 12 weeks, I'm going to test you again to see how good at chemistry are you, okay? And in 12 weeks, you're going to take that test, and what's going to happen? You're going to do great, right? Because for 12 weeks, you've been practicing that chemistry test. But I'm going to guess after those 12 weeks, if we put you in a real world scenario where you needed to know about chemistry, you probably won't know a whole lot because you only know what you've been practicing, okay? Now the same goes with falls prevention. If our falls prevention plan is to only practice the test and we measure balance in 12 weeks time, yes, it's going to look like our balance has improved, but for some reason you might find the rate of falls is not going down and you're scratching your head, you're wondering why that's the case. Why are the falls still happening even though this person's balance has improved? Now, falls prevention is about so much more than just balance. To prevent falls, we need to help people to interact with their environment more effectively. That means they need strength. That means they need cardiovascular endurance. That means they need agility and coordination to be able to interact with their environment and adapt to the changes in their environment. They need to be able to Let's use a very common fall example here. They need to be able to sit in their chair at home. Maybe they're watching their favorite program on TV and they've got their walker or their cane next to them and the phone rings. They need to hear a phone ring, make a decision in their brain of, okay, I need to get up to answer the phone. Do I grab my walker or my cane or do I just go for it? Okay, they then need to stand up from their chair. They need to walk, lifting their toes, lifting their knees to the phone, okay, and answer it. And we know phones don't ring forever, so you have to do this pretty quickly, right? And so that shows that there's a lot more to preventing a fall than balance alone. That scenario there, the scenario where you're sitting in the chair, phone rings, you have to get up to answer the phone, is a very common fall scenario, okay? Standing on one foot is not going to help us to reduce the risk of someone having a fall in that very common scenario. But do you know what will? Sit to stands. Being able to sit in a chair and stand with strength and power. Power is strength and speed together. A phone is ringing. They need to stand up. They need to have the core strength to stay standing. They need to have the strength and range of motion in their lower leg to lift their toes so they're not shuffling and they're not going to trip over something that might be on the floor. Or maybe they need to stand up and, oh, there's something on the floor. They need to step around it in order to go answer that phone, okay? They need to make that decision. Am I grabbing the walker or not grabbing the walker or the cane to use to get to the phone? Okay? So coordination, agility, information processing speed. More and more research is talking about the brain connection to falls prevention, that there is a big intellectual cognitive component that we need to work on our bodies, our strength, our endurance, but also our brain. Let's take another common fall scenario. Let's say they're leaving their house and they're gonna walk down the street and they're going to a restaurant. And the restaurant's about 5-10 minutes away, or maybe they're going to their mailbox, wherever it is. And as they're walking, a cyclist is coming down the sidewalk. And they have to think, oh, is this cyclist going on the road? Or are they coming on? Should I step to the side? Or should I be okay going forward? Okay? That is, again, information processing. That's the ability to sidestep, to transfer their weight. Maybe a lot of times they're just walking forwards. Maybe they don't have to walk backwards too often or sideways too often. And so we start to lose that muscular ability to do those movements. Maybe you're standing there, you're waiting for something to happen, and someone's in front of you, and they start to back up, and you think, oh, and you have to step back. Okay, that's another instance where you might see falls happening because that person hasn't practiced really stepping back, and so they fall. So balance and falls prevention are wildly different things. We can, though, use those stances, as I said, things like narrow stance, staggered stance, tandem stance, single leg stance, to measure changes in balance over time, because balance is one part of the puzzle. So if you're doing a falls prevention program, you want to ensure you're including strength, cardiovascular endurance, agility, coordination, information processing, and also some balance in there as well. And you might use balance assessments to see the changes in balance. And you might do balance self-assessments, where as a group, you could tell your group to go ahead and do that narrow stance. They can do different finger holds. They can do different visual challenges. And as they're getting stronger, as they're exercising with you, we should see an increase in their ability to hold those different stances, okay? They can hold this a little bit better because they have a stronger leg that can hold them up a little better, okay? Better coordination, agility, better mind-body connection and motor pathways, All right, so go ahead and use those stances to track changes over time, but the stances alone are not the thing that is helping to prevent falls.